Okay, Lily, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jess. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited. We're going to get into so many great topics today, and I just can't wait for everyone to hear. So, being that the show is called Journey In, I really like to, anytime I have a guest on, I really love to dive into your own personal journey of just your life journey and your spiritual journey and what that has looked like for you. So I would love to start there. Take us back to your childhood. What were you like as a kid?
Whoa, way back.
Way
Okay.
back.
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that, everyone's childhood is so indicative of kind of their journey long term, but I feel like I'm just no exception to that. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I live in Idaho now. So I moved, I'm a transplant. I moved across the country. And yeah, when I was growing up in PA, I actually attended an alternative elementary school, which I think kind of fueled a lot of my interest as it stands today. So I did a Waldorf school. I don't know if you've ever heard of something like that, but it's outside of the public school system. It's a private kind of, I guess, institution, you could call it. And basically, what goes on there is we as children are kind of learning in a whole new kind of way. So a lot of it is place-based learning. I think this is becoming more and more popular currently, but when I was young, it wasn't super popular. But place-based learning, a lot of like nature learning, a lot of hands-on work,
I
less,
love that.
yeah, yeah. I felt really lucky. Even just looking back on it, felt really lucky, even though at one point I was ready to go, or I was curious, we'll say, about a public school system. But the one that I grew up in from kindergarten to fifth grade was, I think, really important for me because it gave me a lot of really tangible skills around this kind of relationship with nature that I have now and how to kind of relate in a more authentic, grounded way to the world around us, but also just having more of a focus on things that were not academic per se was really helpful for I think for children in general to like help them develop their intuition and speak from their soul later on in life. So I feel like that was a big transformational kind of portion of my life that looking back on it, I love that I have that experience. And yeah, I traveled after college to get out here for my graduate program and kind of in the space between elementary school and college, I was just doing the thing as a high schooler. Lots of sports, lots of academics, lots of music. I was really, really into chorus. I loved singing. And then I moved into the, higher kind of academic world where I was getting my undergraduate still in Pennsylvania. And I was working on getting a degree in environmental sciences, but more generally earth sciences. It wasn't technically environmental sciences, a little more broad than that. And then from there, got my master's in Idaho, which is where I currently am, as I mentioned. And again, I was working on a degree in the earth kind of space, natural resources space. So that's a little bit about my academic and background and personal kind of life before now. And it was kind of through my master's and then graduating from my master's that I started to get into what I currently do.
Well, that was going to be my next question was what led you into spirituality?
Yeah, so backtracking just a little bit to undergraduate. So I feel like another really big pivotal portion of people's lives in general is college experiences because it's just kind of the first time that you're really on your own and you're kind of like feeling into what life is like in
Mm-hmm.
a way that, you're not necessarily tied to the family in proximity. Some people are, some people, do it from home, but I wasn't. I moved away. It wasn't far. It was only like an hour, but there's still kind of a separation there. And it was through kind of that experience that I ended up moving into kind of a disordered pattern around food and eating and kind of a disordered way of seeing myself in general. And that that experience was really the catalyst to opening me up to the spiritual journey, essentially. And it took years of this kind of struggle that I had with eating and just around the whole disordered eating space to start to embrace spirituality, because as a kid, I actually always said I was an atheist. I like grew
That's
up.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with a Catholic background, but also a Jewish background. So I had two kind of schools of thought, you could say. And I was involved in each because I had two families that were practicing both. And I enjoyed kind of that straddle. I thought it was interesting. And yet I didn't really have any kind of solid faith that I would call my own. Although I liked the ritual and tradition of both, there were certain things that I liked, certain things that I didn't. And I never really adopted one or the other as my own. But through the disordered eating experience, I was kind of pushed to in the surrender point, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But I would kind of backtrack on that a little bit to say that it was partially that and then partially illness that really got me to embrace the spiritual component of life in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the illness on top of the eating disorder thing that really was like, okay, something really needs to change and I need to find a new way.
Wow. So you mentioned that you were raised Catholic, but also Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a point where you basically decided to completely step away from both of those set systems of believing and practicing spirituality?
Yeah, it was never something that I fully adopted. So it was never something that I fully stepped away from.
Mm-hmm.
My family wasn't in any way, I wouldn't even call my family religious. It was just the way that, we celebrated Christmas, we went to church every once in a while. And then on my dad's side, it was much more structured. There was a lot more of just a structure around the Jewish holiday, because technically a lot of the Jewish holidays are done like in the home versus in church. So there's a lot of like ceremony and 5-day ritual that happens in the Jewish community space. And so I would say that those felt really exciting to me because they were big events. People would travel from all over to come to where my grandmom was living. And even though like I was really involved and like I loved them because there was a sense of a community and family, it wasn't like I ever felt any kind of connection to the religion itself. And so for me, it didn't really feel like a stepping away, just more so of a finding my own really of what kind of spoke to me and what I could kind of get behind. I remember being a kid, I was just talking to one of my best friends about this, but I remember being a kid and just like really rebelling against some of the teachings in both kind of camps. Yep. I mean, that's the thing, like I didn't go to synagogue, but I went to church. And so everything that I knew about the Jewish faith was through my family. And so I think it was less for me like abrasive in that way versus going to church and like hearing it from someone who I wasn't intimately connected with, and just like hearing it in a different setting. I don't know. I guess there was just something different about that I felt kind of, I would get kind of mad about some of the things that were said. And, that definitely shaped I've always been kind of a rebellious kid, but I definitely felt like a strong rebellion against some of the teachings, in the religious space as well. And so when I found the realm of spirituality, that just hit a nicer chord with me, and I was able to kind of get behind that in a way that I wasn't really able to with other methods or schools of thought in the religious space.
We have some similarities there. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and so I never resonated with it, but it's interesting that you were raised with two different sets of kind of, I guess, religious. I mean, you mentioned your family wasn't super religious, but you were exposed to two different ways of believing, which I think is pretty unique. And
yeah,
So what would you say what was the moment like for you when spirituality struck that chord that you said resonated? Like, what was the moment like? Can you explain it?
Yeah, I can. So this was kind of through I would say probably 3.5 years ago. Yeah, maybe like 3 years ago when I graduated with my master's. I was, yeah, in a really desperate place with just chronic illnesses that I was trying to heal. And I joined a program. And in that program, I was learning so much about brain rewiring, other things like that. But there was definitely a spiritual component to it. And, spirituality in a sense kind of reminds me of being a kid because, and I think that might have been why I was able to kind of get behind it. Like I wasn't really able to the other kind of religious preferences.
Mm-hmm.
Was like when I learned about spirituality through that program, it would just felt magical to me. And like because of that, like it was the magic, I think. Like I really think it was that. And I just have always loved that, magical touch from when I was little, especially growing up in an alternative school where there's a lot of emphasis on imagination and especially, imagination in nature. I think that was just kind of like, okay, like I like this. This is fun. And for me, it has to be fun. It has to feel good or
Mm-hmm.
else it's what's the point, And for me, it felt fun. And I remember learning about angel numbers and I remember, learning about those things and being like, oh my gosh, like signs, like how interesting. That's so fun, so cool.
Yeah.
Like this is what I asked for as a kid. Like play with my I would like play. I used to like read these books and then kind of like play with the characters like in my mind and like experiment with like bringing them to life and stuff like that. And it was just, it reminded me of that. And so I think that's what hooked me.
I It's such a beautiful point that you brought up because I think that people, especially coming from, organized religion backgrounds, at least like speaking from my experience, a spiritual practice can feel so just like boring and so mundane and so just blah. I mean, that's how it felt for me at least. And then when you mentioned, you're like, it just felt fun. It's like, yeah, it's supposed to feel fun. And I mean, it doesn't always. I mean, we can
Yeah.
get into like dark nights of the soul and ego deaths and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But really, truly, it's about coming back to yourself. And, a lot of what it sounds like is coming through in your journey is like you being able to connect to that inner child. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been a big part of like my journey and my spirituality, especially as of lately, is like connecting to the inner child within us, which can become so distant. Like we can become so distanced from our inner child just because of conditioning. And, we have to grow up and we have to do the thing. We have to live life. We have to make money, all the things. But it's crazy to me that, with spirituality, you really can make it your own and it is supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel good.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I like your point that you made about, coming into your own power, because that was something that really made me so angry and like triggered me a lot as a little kid, like me running around being mad about this.
Oh
But,
yeah.
like that whole like guilt kind of component that I felt when it came
Yes.
to some of the more, traditional or established forms of religion, I felt like with spirituality that wasn't really the case, and that I was, designed to be me, and that was like supported inherently. And so that piece is just as important, I think.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I know when I first had my awakening and I was learning, from a mentor, and I was learning that I was like, wait, it's not sinful for me to swear and to drink and to like be human. And they're like, no, like It's like your higher power, however you identify with a higher power, they understand like you are human. You're living a human experience. You are not meant to be perfect. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. That doesn't mean you have to go to confession. And that doesn't mean that you have to guilt trip yourself for everything, for being human. I mean, I've talked about this in a past episode, but it's just like, I don't know, of course it's surfacing again. This is why I'm so passionate about spirituality and really just like opening up just opening like with the intention to open people's minds a little bit more, not to, persuade anyone to believe anything, but to really see that like, again, to your point, it can be fun. It is what you make of it. And I think it's a very personalized journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. I love that.
So you started getting into spirituality. You mentioned that you were doing a program, and take us to kind of where you started, because I think a lot of people, when they start to feel the pull or feel the call and have that awakening, we'll call it, it's like, where do I start? So where did you start specifically with your spiritual journey?
Yeah, that's a good question because, yeah, it can be overwhelming when you're opening up to all of this. And, you know, okay, I'll back up. I was going to jump ahead, but I'll back up. So, how I started was really through my illness. Like, I'd hope that that isn't everyone's path that's listening to this. It was mine. And, you know, there came a time when, like I said, there was just like a desperate need to find something else. And I started listening to podcasts. Honestly, I started listening to podcasts. I found one mentor that I still love and listen to all the time. And then through her podcast, I was able to find this program that was designed for people like me, seemingly, who had like mystery illness and couldn't heal. And so I was like, okay, like I have to do this. Like I don't have a choice. I've done everything else. I've tried everything. I have to do it. And so yeah, it was through that program. Like I said, I started with brain rewiring. That was really the kind of the first jumping off point to realize kind of like how I was talking to myself, how my beliefs were really kind of such a big part of why I felt sick and or why I was sick. And yeah, the brain rewiring process, it can take a long time. And so for me, it took, months of being really devoted to it because I thought it was my lifeline essentially. And yeah, so that's where I started. And also when it comes to kind of the spirituality, more spiritual component, I just started with my card deck. Like I still have my card deck. I like I get emotional when I think about this deck. Like the amount of times I have pulled from this card deck and just been in like such a desperate place, and the amount of times that it showed up for me. Yeah, thank you, card deck. And I mean, I have many at this point, but there's one, my first one, and you know how it is.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah. Yeah, so my card deck and then, numbers, they were a really big part of kind of like how I you could say like broke into the spirituality space. I just started paying attention to numbers, and I started, human design was another huge entry point for me. I was sold on human design like almost right from the start, and I freaking loved it. Like I was like, okay, I'm a generator. What does it mean to be a generator? I want to live my design. I want to live in alignment. I want to feel good in my body. I don't want to feel guilty anymore. I don't want to feel out of alignment. And, that's such a powerful, it's a channeled system. It's a powerful, powerful avenue for alignment. And so, the process of kind of incorporating all of those things, I think it was a good start for me to kind of jump into this space in a broader way.
It's beautiful. Yeah, we're big fans of human design over here. I've talked about it a bit on the podcast, but yeah. And what's also really interesting is that your body led you to your journey, because it was the same for me. My body led me to my journey. All of my food intolerances led me to my journey. And, you know, I've actually talked to quite a few other people in the spiritual space who have had similar, it's not always that way, but who have had similar experiences with their body pushing them to, you know, it is kind of like you get to that point of desperation, but it has to push you that far so that you will go further or you will go outside of your comfort zone. And for most people, when you're starting a spiritual journey, it's like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't know what this means. I don't even know what I'm doing. But at this point, I have tried everything. I've exhausted my options. And here's this new option. So I'm just going to fucking go for it. And I don't know. I felt really called to touch on that for whoever hears this, is just like your body, illnesses and ailments, not saying that, you know, we want them, but if they like, it's like really sit with them and like, what are they trying to tell you? And this is something that I have to continually remind myself, because I still have food intolerances, and I have to stay away from gluten, dairy, and garlic of all things. And I have to remind myself all the time, like, okay, body, like, you are keeping me away from these foods for a reason. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your wisdom. And it's just like, I think that that can be a really good like perspective shift for people, and to also see like it can be a blessing in disguise if you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And of course, it's like, I'm a manifesting generator, you're a generator. We're both very designed to be in our bodies. So naturally, our bodies guided us to our journey with spirituality. So that's great. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing everything that you have shared so far. I just think it's so interesting to hear what led everyone to where they are right now. Let's shift a little bit into your business. So we got into spirituality, and then you said that you got your bachelor's degree in, I think, an earth science or earth sciences. So were you working some sort of corporate job before? And then what led you into deciding to start your own spiritual business?
Yeah, I never worked a corporate job. I actually just worked, so I currently do work for the environmental space as well. Not in a full-time capacity, but so so it was undergrad, master's, and then I did get into kind of the work space in a part-time way. But it was after my master's degree that I really couldn't work at all. And so I had to move home, and I really just like couldn't do anything that would cause any kind of stress on me. Like I couldn't really even walk that far, to be honest. And so I had to move home and heal essentially. And so after I had kind of done like 3 months of that and like put that kind of under my belt, I worked a job. I started selling fish with a guy that I met with he's like a wonderful man, but like he has his own like little traveling like fish mart. And I'm just like, I literally am selling like I'm selling fish. Like what? Like this is where I was, you know, like I get a master's degree, I can't use it, I'm too sick, and then I'm like, okay, the only thing I can do is like work 2 days a week, you know, helping my now like dear friend sell this in like his own business. And like I loved his mission in terms of like bringing like sustainable seafood. Like it was kind of like very aligned with my values. And so I really, and I loved working with him too, and the relationships I made through that job. But at the same time, I was like, okay, like this is not what I should be doing. Like I should not be doing this. Like I should be either using my degree or something else. And then at that point, I was like, basically, I need to find a way to make money that isn't going to like derail my health again. Like I need to find a way to sustain myself without burning out essentially again, and without kind of going back on all the progress that I've made. And so I had like a wonderful opportunity drop in that was super relaxed, that would give me the amount of money like that I needed to basically pay my bills. And it just came in one day. I was meditating in the park and I was like, I just need this. Like I need a position that isn't going to demand anything from me and that's just going to pay me. Like I just need it.
Literally dream job.
I know, but
Can
I
you teach us
seriously
all
like,
what?
yeah,
We need it.
I did. I was just like, I need this. Like, I need a job that isn't going to take from me, that is like going to be on my own time, that I, love who I'm working with, and that doesn't require like physical need from me at all. Like, and I need it to be part-time, and I want it to be in this area of work, like in my field. And I literally, like, I've been thinking about this for a while, but I did like a strong visualization meditation. I literally opened my eyes and I looked at my phone, and a a professor I had met in school had texted me, no idea how he got my number, and was like, "Hey, I want to hire you for this position." And I was just like, "What the?" Like, I was like,
That is like you manifested like in that moment.
like instantly. I was just like, "Wow, okay." And so anyway, I was taken care of, right? So I was taken care
Yes.
of, and I was okay. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I have the space to like find like where all of this is like channeling
Yeah.
towards. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, like, when you're in like a survival state, like I was, like in my body, like I was trying to survive. In my life, I was trying to survive. I did not have an income, and my parents were supporting me for like a time being, but like how much can like you just,
It
I'm
pushes you into fight or flight.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
I was like, I need to like get some foundations under me. And so I had it. I finally had it. And at that point I was like, okay, like I can relax. I can heal. I can do this job in like a minimal way, whatever's just gonna like get me the money that I need. It was just literally like, but
It was the
gift.
universe being like, yep, ask and you
Yep.
shall receive.
Yep. And then in that space of like my nervous system was able to come down a little bit, I was like, okay, like
Yes.
now I want to like find what is this all about? Why am I going through this? Like, what do I do with this? And so that's when I started my business. And at that point, I was like, okay, I feel the desire to share my journey. Like, I'm a 3-line in human design. So, I mean, it's very aligned to kind of share personal experiences. And I started with that. I started with just sharing some products that I was using that had helped me heal. And from there, it started to grow. And I wasn't expecting to make any money. And then I started making money. And I didn't, like, I know everyone says that, like, oh, I didn't go into it for the money. Like, I went into it because I was like, maybe I can make some extra income from my phone because I can't do anything else, and I can do it in a way that's aligned with my heart. Like, maybe this will work for me. But like in the back of my head, I was like, I'm not like, am I actually going to make this money? I don't know. And so I did. I started making some money, and it wasn't a ton, but it was enough for me to stop and think and be like, wow, like this is actually kind of working. And so I kind of continued down the path and got clearer and clearer. And as I started to really ground into this potential reality, I started to see it as a real potential for my life. And at that point, that's when I started doing my best to expand it and heal past. And so I'm healed, right? Like, I've healed over that time. And then healing took on kind of a new nature. Like, it's not about healing my body necessarily anymore. It's about like healing my life and like stepping even more into alignment with who I'm really meant to be. And it took the illness and the journey to get to that point where it's like, now it's refinement. Like, now it's about the really the important decisions, the discernment, the who's in my life, who's not in my life, where do I want to go with my life, what's my vision. Those things I
Yes.
could not focus on until my body was in some way functional. And that's just, I mean, if anyone's listening and you're kind of in that space of like, it's all about me, like I don't know how to think about anything else. That's normal. Like, you have to,
100%.
you have to go through that process.
Yes, I'm resonating with this so deeply because it's like you said, when you are in that state of, if you don't have a job or you don't have any sort of support, of course, like your parents were supporting you, that's great, but that's like a temporary fix. It's like,
Yeah.
this isn't long term. And I have been in that situation as well. And it's like, all you can think about is like, I mean, I've been to the point where like I've had like $25 in my bank account and I'm like, I don't know like where my next like dollar is going to come from, you know? And so it really is to that point where it's like, it pushes you into fight or flight because like we need, you know, money is our currency here and like we need it to survive. And so it is a really good point of like, for anyone in that fight or flight, or if they're like feeling super just like dazed and confused about where they are, no matter if they're on a spiritual journey or not, it's like, okay, how can you get yourself stabilized so that you can start to actually like focus on doing more of the inner work, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the foundations.
Yes. And that's just so beautiful. Like, sounds like in that meditation that you did, it sounds like you really like put the energy out there for the universe to be able to meet what it was that you needed. So, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, manifestation, but it's just like crazy how instantly it happened and how easy it can be because we are fed that story that it has to be hard. And that was a story that I grew up with. I know it's a story that a lot of other people grew up with, and I'm still deconditioning from that and still really believing like, wait, it can be easy. Like I can be supported without having to like bend over backwards and burn myself out because I've gone that direction. And now I'm being supported in a way that is like, I didn't know it was possible. So, and that is the gift of, I mean, going down a spiritual journey and just like choosing ease and like you said, choosing to follow your heart.
Yeah.
Over your head. So, wow, thank you for sharing that piece of your journey because I know that we connected before this, but that was like, I feel like a lot of people will benefit from hearing that.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about energy healing because talk about manifestation. I literally have been like talking to my guides. I've been like, I really want to have an energy healer on the podcast because, you know, it's my favorite modality right now. And I'm like, more people need to know about this. And then you reached out to me and I was like, so anyways, talk about manifestation. What is energy healing? Can we start there? Just so people, if they're listening, if they've like never even heard of it, or maybe they've heard of it, but they don't know what it is. Can you explain what it is?
Yes. Love that you manifested me also.
I love it too. I love it too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, totally. Energy healing, amazing topic. And yeah, it was a huge part of my healing journey. I remember my first energy healing session so clearly. And I've had hundreds, maybe not hundreds, but many since then.
Yeah.
I actually just did my own session before this because I wanted to bring some insights to the podcast. So
ooh,
touch on some of those.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So energy healing is, you know, obviously it's intangible, right? Like it's not something that we can see. I'm just, you know, bare bones basics. Like this is quantum physics. So everything in life, thoughts, emotions, body, desk, chair, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. And so energy healing, the premise behind it is that, you know, the body resonates at its frequency and then the energy healing resonates at a higher frequency. And the idea is that through oscillation, so basically that's just a fancy word for when two things are next to each other, the lower or weaker one will rise to the vibration of the stronger one. And so in the form of energy healing, when we're looking at, say, illness, someone's body will resonate at a certain hertz, say, you know, like different illnesses can kind of like come in at different frequencies. It's really interesting. You can like look up which, you know, whatever you're struggling with, you can look up kind of the frequency of it, and then kind of whatever hertz, which is just the way that we measure energy or energetic pulses, whatever hertz you're at, then the energy healing, you know, the practitioner, the conduit, whoever you're working with, brings in an energy that is higher, that raises your body up to its level so that they can be in harmony, because everything in the universe wants to operate in harmony versus in, you know, disresonance. So that is kind of the premise that I would say of energy work and why it can be so beneficial for people, because it really is working at the, I would say, the cellular level, because everything, down to the cell is vibrating at a specific frequency, and even supplements, I would say there's so many different forms of energy healing too. Like I do a hands-on kind of healing, often distance, but even like a supplement protocol is a form of energy healing, because everything is energy, right? So, but the one that we're kind of talking about here is the one where practitioners are actively channeling an energy, either their own form of energy healing or kind of a universal energy, like the one that I use, which is called Reiki, to a client with the intention of healing whatever the session needs to be about. So that's kind of the basics.
I loved that. I didn't know that different like illnesses hold different frequencies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And yeah, so again, I mean, this is very physical. I mean, I always say energy healing it's the way of the future, in my opinion. And it's kind of like, for me, it's very physical, but it's also very, I mean, it is very healing. It's like therapy, but it's like, I always am like, okay, like, and this is to say nothing about, regular talk therapy, because I think that regular talk therapy is great and there's definitely a place for that as well. But with energy healing, it's like anytime I go into a session, I'm like, okay, well, I know I can't lie about anything, because literally my healer will be able to like see it and like,
Yeah.
will know what's going on. But then also the beauty of it is like, you can go into a session just feeling like super anxious. I mean, like I've gone into sessions where I'm like, I'm so anxious and I literally don't know why. And you just get to like boom, you get to the root of what's making you anxious. And it's like, holy shit. And you're like, whoa, that's it. And it's just like so fast. I feel like it's like so like cuts straight to the, like straight down to the root. And I mean, again,
Yeah.
every session is different, I'm sure, but what what does an energy healing session with you look like specifically, just so people kind of have an idea of, let's say they came to you for a session, what would that look like?
Yeah. So if someone came to me for a session, well, first of all, I do a lot of groups and a lot of one-to-one work, but I love groups because I don't know, I think my energy just really likes the excitement of multiple people to tune into. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting, but I do one-to-one work as well and love it. Just, it's just so different, based on kind of the mode that you're in, whether it's in person or distance can also feel really different. Most of my sessions are distance because I work with people kind of all over the US. But basically what we do when we get into session is we set intention together. And I know that can kind of make people, I don't know what to set intention about. Like, I don't know, am I doing this right? But the thing is, and this is something that came through when I was doing my session today and tuning into actually Reiki as an energy, it's a feminine energy, is that you really have to believe, like on a bone level, like you have to trust, because the thing is, it's all in your control. You are the one who can decide whether you receive or you don't. And so even if you say, yeah, okay, but you're like kind of thinking, like, to your point, you can't hide it. If your skepticism is kind of overruling your curiosity, I would say, most people are skeptical until they experience it, but there has to be a core level of curiosity. There has to be an openness, because ultimately it's up to you whether or not you receive it. And no one can ever force you to receive anything that you don't want. And so if your energy is blocked, is closed to it, then I wouldn't expect to feel much. And that's just kind of a waste of the practitioner's time and your time, essentially, because, why even buy a session if you're not open to it?
Right.
Doesn't really make any sense. But so being open to it and really believing it, like challenging yourself to actually believe it and see what happens from that space, versus going into it halfway and being skeptical and not sure and is this going to work? Is she that good? You know, those kinds of things, like challenging yourself to believe it and then moving from there is going to be the most powerful route. And so getting back to the process that I work through with clients, when it comes to intention, we set intention together because intention is really important. You know, Reiki is activated by intention. And so setting intention as, you know, practitioner and client can be really helpful for me because I know what to tune into and I know kind of what you want out of the session, so I can add energy to that. But it also helps you kind of focus in on your desire and then manifest it essentially. You know, energy work, manifestation, it's all working for you at the same time. You know, it's all happening.
Yes.
But if you kind of go into it like, whatever, there can be a time and place for that. Just being open to whatever comes through and being like, yeah, like I'm in a space of neutrality and I'm open to whatever comes through for me today, versus I don't really know. Like, you feel the difference, obviously.
Yes.
And so I would say setting intention is, you know, a great part of the process. And then we just move into meditation. I like to guide my clients in meditation so that they can kind of anchor into their bodies, first of all, and ground. A lot of my clients, not all, but some of my clients have a tendency to really get up there, like they'll lots of visions, astral stuff. And so I like to ground people into their bodies so they feel more safe to receive. Because even if cognitively we're saying, yeah, I receive, if our body doesn't feel safe or anchored, or our nervous system's all kind of like in shambles, then it makes it much more difficult to receive. And so I lead you through kind of a grounding meditation, and we usually do a lot of kind of earth work, like really grounding into the earth, depending on, you know, the intention of the client and what I feel intuitively. All of my meditations are very intuitive. And then I play some music for you and you just kind of receive for, depending on session time, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes of time. And then I kind of work through your energy body and do what I do, receive any messages that need to come through for you. Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there's a little. I will sometimes pull cards for the client as well. And then we come back together, share our experiences, and I make sure to seal up the container so that it is complete, it's done, the work has been done. And then something that came through today when I was tuning into the Reiki energy too was the importance of metabolizing after the session. And so just getting the visual of walking, like feet hitting the earth, just really metabolizing the energy afterwards instead of kind of jumping into a task, allowing your body to start metabolizing it. Because as you said, to your point, it's very physical. And so it's not just, you know, where our bodies, our physical or energetic bodies that kind of move outwards from us, they're all interconnected. And so giving ourselves a little bit of space and time for that integration is really important.
And that's a really good point, is definitely the integration. I feel like I walk away too from so many, like any of my energy healing sessions, I walk away with so much that I need to integrate even beyond the physical. So yeah, thank you for explaining all of that. It's such a beautiful modality that
Yes.
it has so many benefits. And what you were mentioning before, like, let's go back to the intentions really quick, because what are some of the most common intentions that you receive from, or that you find with clients?
Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of my clients are focused on emotional healing. And, you know, I think that that's part of kind of my gift that I can offer, is that I feel really deeply. You could call it like clairsentience, or just having an emotional open center, which I do, or undefined center in human design. But yeah, a lot of my clients come for emotional support, and I'm actually kind of moving into offering that as a standalone session as well, because it has been such a topic, such a need from my community. And so, you know, intentions such as I want to feel like more confident in being myself. Like, that's a really big one. I want to release grief. I want to tap into the feeling of safety as I navigate this transition. Those kinds of, you know, intentions are powerful. And, you know, there's sometimes that people will need help with other things that I wouldn't necessarily put in the emotional realm, but I would say 90% of my clients are looking for emotional healing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's why I say it's like therapy, but in my opinion, like even better.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
yeah, I love what you mentioned earlier too about, the openness, because when I mentioned, I'll go into a session and I'm like, I can't lie, like whatever is going to come through is going to come through. It's taken me a long time to like get to that point though of, and that wasn't to like scare anyone. It's just more of like, I'm to the point in my journey where what I want to know what's holding me back. Like, especially when I don't when I feel like I don't know cognitively, or like when I feel like it's like deep in my subconscious, that's what have found is like very powerful with energy healing, is like I definitely go into it with an intention of like, this is how it's manifesting like in my life. Like, whether it be like I am like literally stuck in my career, or like I can't, like it just feels like my career is like feels so hard right now. And then it's like, so that's my intention. And then I go in and it comes and I come out with like, oh, well, I just reconnected to my inner child. And now actually the way to open up my career is through my inner child work. And that's the beauty of it, is like, you don't realize how much like everything is all connected, like in different areas of your life, like love, career, relationships, how you see yourself, like it's all connected. And we have a tendency to, separate everything and think that they're all separate, but they're not. And so that's what I really love about energy healing, is it's like it's such a powerful tool to really help you with like, I don't know, just for me, it's like redirected me in so many beautiful ways of like, I would have never thought about that. And then I leave the session feeling like so like seen and so held, and just, it's hard to explain, but it's, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And so that's why I kind of wanted to dive into the intention, because, for it's again, it's like definitely being open and open-minded. And I again love that point. But it's like, yeah, and the intention can be whatever you make it, but there's so much that you can go into and so much that you can receive. So
Mm.
I just think I mean, I'm a super fan, obviously, but
Me too, obviously.
so what kind of feedback do you usually get from clients as to like what do they experience? Anything that you're able to share?
hmm Yeah, well, as I kind of said, a lot of my clients get like visuals. They kind of go on their own little journeys. They receive messages just like I do. I have one client that is a like really close friend of mine, who, she started doing energy work with me, and through that avenue, she's always been pretty psychic, but at the same time, not really on demand. There's kind of a difference between just receiving things randomly versus being able to tune in, and so she, through our sessions, that was kind of the first place that she was able to get some really like powerful visuals. And then, her abilities have kind of just like skyrocketed from there. I'm not to say that it was all because of me, definitely not, but it was
Right.
just a space that she was able to kind of nurture that part of herself and start to develop. So I would say that, I've also had clients say along the same line of that they start to feel it deeper in their body the more that they do it. And so at first they don't really feel much. And then as their body like starts to recalibrate and get more fine tuned, they can start to feel it. So I've heard of that as well. Um, it's funny because I think that some clients don't necessarily of mine like like I'll notice the change, but maybe they don't.
Mm.
Where, I'll have a client say, yeah, after our energy healing session, like I just felt so good for the whole rest of the day. And I I didn't ask like, oh, do you think it's because of the energy healing? Like I didn't ask that, but I don't know. Some people have a hard time connecting the dots because it's like one of those things where you're just having a really good day and like you don't think about like, oh, maybe it's because of the energy healing, but odds are it probably is because if you have it like the same day or a couple of days, before you start feeling really good, that could be an indicator. And it might not be obvious. It might just be something that you're like, yeah, I just feel lighter. So I've had, clients report those kinds of things. Yeah, like a lot of like emotional release. I've witnessed in clients, both like somatically, like on calls, like visibly, emotionally releasing through their body, which is just amazing to see how impactful it can be in those ways.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've had many sessions where I've cried
Mhm.
very intensely. What is like your wildest experience that you've had, either receiving energy healing or
Mhm.
being a practitioner of it?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay, one of my clients, you know, this is it's hard to like confirm things in terms of energy work, but so one of my clients, I believe, had kind of like a mini kundalini experience during one of my circles, which was pretty intense for me to see, happen, and like want to keep want to keep this person, feeling really good and as much as I can. At the same time, whatever experience is meant for that person to happen during session is going to happen for that person. And I'm not in the role of like protector, like if this person is going to have an intense experience, which they did, then, that's something that I've had to accept as a healer to be, the conduit, the facilitator, and whatever healing is going to happen for this person is, under my intention of being in their highest and best. And that might look like something a little bit more dramatic. Okay. So for instance, this person had, like a mini kind of Kundalini experience that they shared with me afterwards. And so I was both, surprised, but also so excited for them in that way. So I felt like that was really something that felt big for me. Not to say that, like I said, the thing is with being a healer, it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, like I'm such a powerful healer, like I can facilitate these things. But at the same time, there is a discernment that needs to happen with that, where it's like, yes, you are the facilitator, you're the healer, but this person is healing themselves. Like the person is healing themselves. You are the conduit for the energy, and obviously different healers have different gifts, different skills. And that's why we have such a diverse range of practitioners to choose from, but you are choosing based on your intuition and what is in alignment with your energy for your highest and best, so I love to think of it in that way, that it really is the client who's healing themselves. And the healing starts with the choosing of the practitioner to work with, because internally that client is saying, their soul is saying, yes, I will have the greatest benefit with this person.
Yes.
So like even that's
Mhm.
autonomy, like that is their intentional act. And so it's never, I don't view it as, the healer doing it, and I always encourage, clients, especially, and, I've been the client a million times, to just be in your empowerment when you choose sessions, because you're setting the foundational frequency for the session, and just remembering that you're always the one that is doing the work. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy thing. And then in terms of my experience, like being the client, oh, I've had really cathartic experiences with a mentor that I worked with, repeatedly, where I just had visceral responses to the messages that she would bring through in just a really deep way, like really deep, visceral, like almost like I don't know what to do with this truth, that it just is so freaking true, it just hits the soul level, but I also have had a really interesting experience recently in a circle where I was able to kind of get into dialogue with my guides. And that usually doesn't happen for me when I'm receiving in session. And so that felt really exciting and special for me.
Oh, that is really special. Like they came through
Yeah.
and just like directly communicated with you.
Yeah, it was like, so obviously everyone's intuitive gifts are different, right? But mine, sometimes I will feel like I'm in conversation, but it's never really happened in session where I feel it, the energy can amplify. So I was in session and I chose not to use any music for this session. And I was just sitting at my desk and just receiving the energy. And having a conversation and kind of writing it down as we went, and just asking about all different things, and just feeling like I had, that almost like telephone, like direct line to my guides. And like that was really special for me, because the thing is, with energy healing, I know a lot of healers actually don't receive, messages when they're receiving healing. I've talked to other healers about this, and they're like, yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And so that was kind of an interesting, cool experience for me. And, sometimes you don't want to get your own messages, because as a healer, like, I'm constantly tuning in for other people, I'm constantly tuning in for myself. So sometimes it's nice to just receive and let the facilitator bring the messages through. But in this case, I had a lot of questions, and it was really great. I loved it.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I love that. And you made a really good point earlier when you mentioned that ultimately, we have autonomy, like, and it's up to the person to choose the practitioner, and that the practitioner is just the one like bringing through the frequency and bringing through the messages. And I think that really demonstrates that you're very rooted like in love, you're very grounded in the practice. And it's something that's like very important, I feel, because unfortunately in the spiritual space there's a lot of people rooted in ego. And yeah, I just felt really called to like touch on that, because it was such a beautiful perspective, and it was so empowering. And I really think that everybody should always know that, no matter what spiritual modality, if you're like going and getting a tarot card reading or whatever it is, you should always feel empowered by the practitioner or the person who is delivering whatever it is. And they never put them on a pedestal, never, like, they're not there to literally tell you what to do. It's like you actually hold so much more power than you think. And so I think that was such a beautiful, beautiful thing that you said, and like topic that you touched on. Because it's, at the end of the day, it's all about empowerment. And I feel that from you as a healer. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have had you on the podcast if I didn't, but and it just came up so organically in the way that you were explaining it. And so I just think that's really beautiful. And I just really commend you for that, because, yeah. And I just, like, a lot of people need that. They need healers that will hold space for them, in a way that is really rooted and grounded in love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's such a big lesson. And the thing is, when you're in a place of desperation, it's hard to feel empowered, right? Like, It's hard to feel empowered when you're picking your practitioner. But what I would say to those people, because I've been there, is that just knowing that you are choosing the session, that you're choosing the practitioner, that you're following your intuition in that even small way is a radical act of empowerment. Even if you feel like your world is crashing down, like you don't have a ground to stand on, and that if someone could just tell you what to do, things would get better. Even if you're in that headspace, which we've all been in, we've all been in that place where it's like, I just need an answer. I need someone to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do with my life. We've been there. And, in that place of feeling really disempowered and hopeless, there is still your soul, and it's still pulling the strings. Like, it's still choosing the practitioner. It's still deciding to go into session. And like, even that small understanding can pave the way for more empowered choosing in the future. Like, when I choose my sessions, I make sure that I am in an empowered place, because I don't want to set the foundational frequency of the session to be of desperation, of need, of needing something outside of myself. Like, we have people in our lives that we have contracts with, whatever you want to think about when it comes to that, level of relating, that are so important for us to meet. And yet there can be such a outsourcing of power in terms of like personal autonomy when we get into the realm of, oh, well, they're psychic and they can tune into this for me and they can tune into that for me. Like, it can be hard to maintain our center. And I think that most people go through the process of that, where they get too many sessions, they get too many readings, and then they kind of lose themselves in the middle of it. And so there is such a gift that we have been granted, I think, with people who are so skilled in being able to tune into, you know, whatever it is that you need to tune into. Like, it is their craft, it is their mission. And like, it's unfortunate that there's a stigma around, you know, psychics and readers, you know, of being inauthentic and just grabby when it comes to money, because there truly are people with so much light who are really meant to do this work. And at the same time, you know, there's a level of discernment both in who you work with and in whether or not you are available for an empowered co-creative session, you know. And sometimes you aren't, you know, sometimes you're just not, you know, and sometimes you need to back off a little bit, and then sometimes you need more, you know. It really just comes down to you.
Yeah, again, yes to everything you like, so much yes to everything you just said, because another question I was going to ask you is like, what is the frequency of, you know, receiving energy healing sessions that you usually see with clients? And like, for me, I always like intuitively feel out when I need energy healing, because I think it is exactly to your point of like, if you're receiving too much and too many like messages, and like, it can feel like there have been points in my journey where I've given my power away to my guides, my healers, and like been like, oh, I just need an energy healing session to like tell me what to do. And it's like, no, that's not it. Like, you'll know when you like truly need an energy healing session is like, I mean, your intuition, for me, it's like my intuition just like, it's time. And in terms of like who to work with is very intuitively led for me as well, as like I'm very picky with who I work with. But it's like, even if people are like rooted and grounded, like, you may not feel the call with everyone that you encounter. And it's really important to like listen to that as well, is like really listen to when you feel drawn to someone, and like when you can't make sense of it, that's intuition, right? And so really empowering yourself of like not putting, like really looking inward of like, how often do I need to go and who do I need to see? Like, you'll just know. And so give yourself like that power is what I would say, because yeah, that's been my journey. And then I've just been, yeah, I've been going through a big part of my journey right now is trusting myself and trusting my gifts and my intuitive abilities as well, because yeah, it's been a journey, but there have been times where I've given my power away. So that was a really good point that you brought up. Um, but yeah, what would you say, like frequency wise? Would you kind of say the same thing, or would you add anything different?
Can you repeat that last question?
Like, what is the frequency that you would say people come to you for energy healing sessions? Would you say it's pretty individualized, or like, what do you have like a typical recommendation, or what does that look like?
Like, what the client wants to get out of the
No,
session?
sorry, like how many times they come to you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like that would be like a question people would probably be like, well, how often do I need it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
know, sorry, we're talking about like energy work and frequency.
Yeah, I'm like, wait. Okay, yes, I get it now. So I would say I think once a month is a really solid way to start. You
Yeah, I
know,
think
if
that's good
it's
too.
especially if you're just starting, there's it's kind of like anything else. It's like, if you do it once and then never do it again, I mean, maybe that's your path. Maybe you just need it one time and something clicks for you. And then the rest of your life, you're not really meant to receive energy healing. You know, everyone has a different kind of life path and whatever is, you know, in alignment best for them. But I would say if you're hooked on this whole magical realm and you want to expand yourself in these ways and you're looking for support in doing so on the energetic plane, I would say definitely once a month is a strong place to start. And then, as you said, your intuition can guide you from there. Even as a healer, I try to get energy work done almost once a month, because everyone has blind spots and it's important for, I think, healers to get healing. And if they're not investing in that themselves, then how do they expect anyone else to invest
Right.
in them? So I try to do that, even for myself, once a month. And if I don't get it by someone else, I do a full session on myself. So yeah, I would say once a month is a really great starting point, and then using your intuition from there, also depending on where you are like in your journey. Like if you are in kind of a desperate, health crisis situation, this might not apply to you. I'm just talking to the person who's kind of just generally, what I'm feeling is like just dissatisfied with something in their life, with like dissatisfied with their career, dissatisfied with their relationship to their body, whatever it is. If there's, that kind of, you're ready for that next level, but it's not a dire, circumstance, then I would say once a month is a great way to start.
I think that sounds great. So you mentioned that you did before this, you tuned in and you've already given some insights of like what wanted to come through. Before we transition into rapid fire questions, are there any other insights that intuitively you feel called to share?
Yeah, I think oh yeah, so there's a couple others. So yes, so I did a session on myself, and what was really interesting was that, I've never done a podcast specifically on energy healing. And so for the podcast, I was like, I would love to actually connect to Reiki, like the energy. I use Reiki, like I channel Reiki, but I wanted to talk to Reiki. I know that sounds kind of, but anyway, I had no reason to do that really, in my training, it wasn't emphasized there. And so I was really interested to do this today. And yeah, I was so surprised as well. So hopefully this is insightful. But basically, the energy of Reiki. So Reiki is a very ancient form of energy healing. There's many, many forms of energy healing. And Reiki is called, in other words, like prana, chi, like life force. Universal energy is the one I really like. And what I was feeling was that, yes, it is feminine and it's like golden. And even though it's like very ancient, she's very young, like she's quite youthful, which was like very interesting to me because, Reiki was founded by, a Japanese man, Dr. Yusui, and it's just like, it's very ancient, but like she's very youthful and like almost like a Tinkerbell energy, but not small. Like she's not little, she's not fairy, but like there's something about her that reminded me of that. Was very interesting. And then so the belief is really important. And I did ask, like, what do the people on the podcast need to know about, Reiki? And it was the belief was the first thing. And I just felt like it was a really like deep bone level belief, not just like, so we talked about that. And then the metabolizing of the energy afterward is important for people. And then also there was a kind of a message around the actual frequency of the energy being much more diverse than I had realized. So like it's almost like a spectrum. And this kind of gets to our point that we kind of talked about in terms of intention, but there's almost like a spectrum of Reiki energy that I, as a practitioner, can channel and tune into. It's much more diverse than I would have like thought before like tuning in this way. So it's not just like one thing. I mean, it's universal energies. There's a lot to it. It's a lot. It's like, it's diverse. That's the word. That's the word that's keeps coming through. So I think when, setting intention, having that in mind, that like there's depth that we can tap into when it comes to this energy. And it's just a lot more, it's playful as well. And it's light, it's golden. And so hopefully that gives you kind of like a picture or a visual, if you're a visual learner, of what Reiki, presents itself to me as.
That's so beautiful. I love that I just love that you did that before this and that you really, it's so intentional. And I feel really grateful like that you came on the podcast and that you talked about this because I just feel like you were the perfect person to deliver the message and really help to open up, like my listeners and whoever, else hears this podcast is to just open up the channel to it, open up their minds to it, because that's why I was feeling super called, as I was like, I need to have an energy healer on the podcast. Like I knew that was for sure guidance.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it's like I created this podcast like for other people, to hear and hopefully inspire them, and empower them. So thank you for sharing.
Oh yeah. Getting so many chills.
I know, it's so beautiful. And just like seeing Reiki as more personified a little bit, I feel like I don't know, it makes it a little bit more like tangible,
Yeah, I felt
Sense?
that way too. And I was like, wow, I'm so glad I did this, because it's
Yeah.
like learning about Reiki, in its ancient form, it's kind of hard to relate to Dr. Usui, who's like a Japanese man, monk, priest, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's kind of hard to relate, so maybe that's maybe that's why,
Yeah, you're a little bit far from a monk.
exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
I hope it was interesting.
It
I
was
felt
fascinating. So I'm very excited for people to hear and to hear what they think. So, okay, we're going to switch over to rapid fire. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
You're the first person I'm doing this with. Woohoo. Okay, they're just like fun questions, but okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Would you rather have more time or more money?
Oh gosh, that's so good.
I know.
Time.
Spend money on a dream home or travel the world?
Has to be travel.
I knew you were going to say travel. Aren't you a Sag? Because you're a Sagittarius rising, right?
Yes.
Okay. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Favorite spiritual modality?
Oh. Has to be energy healing.
Love it. Love it. Same. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh man. Trust yourself.
Love that. And last but not least, what would you title this current chapter in your journey?
It's rebirth and expansion.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Powerful rebirth and expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Woo.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's bigger now.
Lily, how can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Mostly on Instagram. I have my email list as well, but you can find all of that through my Instagram kind of channel. I am at Lily Fanok and then a little underscore after.
Perfect. And I will put that in the show notes along with Lily's offerings. So if you feel called to connect with her, to even receive an energy healing session from her, all of that information will be there. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Lily. It was such an honor to have you.
Oh my gosh, so fun. I loved it. Loved every moment. Thank you so much for having me, Jess.